Hello travelers, I'm Wheelchair Jimmy and I've been driving and cruising around New Zealand for the last 3.5 weeks. We had a great time. Now this is a beautiful country and the people down here are among the nicest in the world. You know, accessibility was good. It had some limitations, so I thought I'd provide a couple city accessibility and transportation tips if you're planning a trip to New Zealand. First, let me make a couple quick observations. I found wheelchair accessible buses in many cities, including Auckland and Wellington. Number two, I could not find any fully accessible car or van rental locations anywhere in the country. That made planning a little bit more difficult. Number three, I found accessible taxis only in Dunedin, nowhere else in the country, including Auckland or Wellington or Queenstown. Number four, rail transport. It wasn't promising anywhere in the country that I could find. And number five, most importantly, unlike Europe, I found wheelchair accessible restrooms everywhere, along with many curb cutouts throughout the country. The Auckland airport is accessible. You know, the infrastructure is at least 50 years old and they've done a poor job for a major city. They should be ashamed. I think they're ready for an upgrade. Not all the jetliners have jetways. You know, some of the airlines, even Air New Zealand, occasionally use hydraulic truck lifts to put wheelchairs on planes. So leave plenty of time in making connecting flights because loading and unloading wheelchairs can take an extended period of time. You know, the airport elevator signage for wheelchair access is very poor here, but signs do exist, so look carefully. There are also wheelchair accessible restrooms at the Auckland airport. All of the Metrolink and CityLink buses that I saw in Auckland were wheelchair accessible. There are multiple tour buses, but few are wheelchair accessible. Now, the Auckland Explorer Cityside buses have some wheelchair accessible buses. You might also want to check out Ritchie's, as some have wheelchair access. I did not find any wheelchair accessible taxis in Auckland, and the Kiwi Rail did not look very promising. Now, the Queenstown airport is small, it's accessible, but they too don't have a lot of jetways and use those hydraulic truck lifts to put the wheelchairs on the plane, so give yourself extra time. Also, I found no accessible buses, taxis, rail, or car rental agencies in Queenstown. Downtown Queenstown and the waterfront is very level, very accessible, rolling around was a breeze. Now, in the capital city of Wellington, all the city buses and airport shuttle buses appear to be wheelchair accessible. I did not find any wheelchair accessible taxis. Now, the downtown area, the waterfront area, the boardwalk along the waterfront, all very level, very accessible, very easy to roll around, and it's just a beautiful city. NAPIER has several wheelchair accessible buses, including an accessible shuttle from the cruise ship. Now, I'm not sure that the large power wheelchairs are going to be able to make it onto these accessible buses. Now, the city itself, it's a coastal village. It's just charming. It's very level, thoroughly accessible. One of my favorite small cities to visit. I did not see any wheelchair accessible taxis here. It's a small town. I'm not sure one is needed here. Some, not all, of the touring red buses from AKAROA are wheelchair accessible, the ones going over to Christchurch, and the rebuild tour red bus in Christchurch are wheelchair accessible with fold-down ramps. Now, again, large power wheelchairs may not fit onto the accessible buses leaving AKAROA going over to Christchurch, but within Christchurch itself, those rebuild tour buses all looked accessible. Now, in Christchurch, the City Line bus, at least the ones that I saw, were not wheelchair accessible, and I saw no wheelchair accessible taxis in Christchurch. Now, you know, after the 2010 and 2011 devastating earthquakes, 80% of Christchurch was lost, and the city in 2014 is absolutely not wheelchair accessible. Most of the city buses in Dunedin were wheelchair accessible with fold-down ramps and really accessible for all sizes of wheelchairs, and mostly from the Octagon downtown. Now, I also found that the City United taxi, they provide an accessible taxi and van service, and they also provide accessible airport transfers. You know, in each of these towns, I found no accessible buses or taxis, except some of the AKAROA red buses over to Christchurch were accessible. Now, it's easy to stroll or roll through each one of these small, charming towns. You know, and Tiano even has a very, very nice public wheelchair accessible restroom and shower for the cost of $1. Now, it's located right on Lakefront Drive. You know, we just had a fabulous time in New Zealand, and to some degree it was because we planned carefully and knew some of the accessibility limitations. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you'll check out our other YouTube videos on New Zealand's hotels, restaurants, and attractions, and other cities worldwide. Roll on, America!